disapprove it, just like a president or a governor can when they veto or sign a bill. And if you complain about that regulation, they're actually the first level of government that you go to try to get it changed, or to complain about maybe the fine that you got. And to add insult to injury, are any of the people that work at these bureaus, these administrative entities, are any of them elected? No. No, you can't do anything to them, can you? No. That is the modern administrative state. And ladies and gentlemen, we now have approaching 80,000 pages in the Federal Register, each page costing our economy and your freedom a terrible toll. Now, Barbara Boxer believes deeply in the administrative state. She believes deeply that you are not taxed enough, you are not regulated enough. In fact, because you're a group of Tea Party patriots, you're probably on the verge of becoming domestic terrorists. And so, ladies and gentlemen, I believe that Barbara Boxer, in this environment in 2010, is uniquely vulnerable to the California voter, is uniquely vulnerable to people who understand the mission statement of America and who understand that Barbara Boxer perhaps has not been taking her oath of office very seriously to support and defend the Constitution of the United States of America. So, ladies and gentlemen, I need your help. I need your help to dethrone Barbara Boxer. I almost said defang, but I guess it could be both. We have now raised $2.35 million from some 25,000 individual donors. Now, how does that stack up to past Republican efforts? We've now raised more money than all three Republicans combined raised 6 years ago. And it's all been done with small donations, half of which using Al Gore's invention. In the last 19 days of May, we actually outraised Barbara Boxer and Tom Campbell on online contributions. We actually outraised the incumbent senator with our online contributions. Nobody tell Al Gore. He might decide to figure out how to disconnect us from the internet. So it's working well. It's working well. Now, I think that we have this great opportunity to get rid of Barbara Boxer and replace her with a proven, battle-tested conservative, somebody who's actually gone to Sacramento and walked the talk, somebody who's actually voted against higher taxes, somebody who's actually voted against bigger government, and occasionally, even in Sacramento, has won a battle or two. Unfortunately, not nearly enough. Ladies and gentlemen, I don't think this is a time to take a chance on somebody who may end up disappointing you at some point in the future. In fact, the polls have shown, as you match the three main Republicans up against Barbara Boxer, that all three of us have consistently been within the margin of error of Barbara Boxer since January of this year. That is remarkable. Absolutely remarkable. Now, I understand that there's a microphone somewhere out there, and that the people addressing you, who are the U.S. Senate candidates, are supposed to allocate some of that time. So I think I've got about 15 minutes left. So at this point in time, let's take some Q&A and mix it up a bit. So those of you who would like to ask a question, sir, I think I see one over here.
Well, first of all, I'd like to thank you for coming. Okay, and also I noticed in the literature I got tonight, because it's my first experience seeing you, about AB 35 here. I know you're against it. It says that you are against it, but I want to know how you feel about this global warming. I mean, we're freezing here, okay? So I want to know what we're doing.
The question is about global warming and things like AB 32, which is California's version of cap and trade that Barbara Boxer has been trying unsuccessfully to enact in the Senate for the past year. But that your Environmental Protection Agency, through a few strokes of the keyboard, made the decree that carbon dioxide is now a toxic gas under the Clean Air Act, and thus can be regulated, where we can charge enormous sums of money to entities that emit carbon dioxide. Now, question about global warming. Let me ask you a question. Has the Earth gone through multiple periods of time in its history that were both warmer and colder than today? And so far as we know, was there industrialization during those periods? Well, I may be just a politician, but it seems to me that if there were periods of time in the Earth's history that were both warmer and colder, that perhaps there are multiple inputs into the equation that determines how warm our planet happens to be. Now, during the debate for AB 32 on the floor of the Assembly a few years back, I rose to make some of these points, and I said the following. The Earth has what's known as the orbital precession, where it spins like a top on its axis on 20, 40, and 100,000 year cycles. That changes the global temperature, the global climate. The solar variability is another instrument that changes our climate. The sun is not always outputting at the same rate from time to time. Volcanoes and supervolcanoes affect the planet's temperature. There's even some theories that occasionally, as we orbit in the Milky Way galaxy, that occasionally we go through periods where there's interstellar dust that dampens the amount of solar radiation hitting our planet. All of these are inputs into the system that we know little about. Ladies and gentlemen, cap and trade in all of its variations have one common thread, just like the argument over water in the state of California. That common thread has less to do with the environment and far more to do with government control. Lastly, just for the sake of argument, let us assume for the sake of argument that we have discovered that perhaps mankind is causing global warming. Ask yourself this question. A few years ago, China surpassed America as the world's #1 emitter of global greenhouse gas emissions. Last year, there were more automobiles sold in China than in America for the first time in history. If you got rid of California tomorrow, just wipe it off the face of the planet, 1 year worth of economic growth in China would wipe out the gain in greenhouse gas emission reductions. So if that's true, what are we trying to do here? Why are we trying to impoverish ourselves in a mission that could never succeed? Ladies and gentlemen, that is why, when I first saw what the Democrats were doing in Sacramento, I proposed legislation to see just how serious they were about reducing greenhouse gas emissions. And in the last 4 years, I have written and drafted and sent forward 5 bills to lift California's obsolete ban on the construction of modern nuclear power plants.